Every NFL draft, quarterbacks are the topic of discussion whether we like it or not, and just last year there were 6 quarterbacks taken in the top 12 picks. 2024 was an insane draft class, and there's a couple of NFL teams that are already thrilled with their quarterback from last year. But not every draft class is created equal, and the 2025 class is not close to the 2024 class. However, there are some interesting prospects at the quarterback position, and in today's video, myself and Marcus Whitman are going to break down the top quarterbacks in the 2025 draft. We're going to discuss their strengths, weaknesses, the grades we have on each player, their pro comparisons, and a whole lot more. And there is a lot to break down in today's video, and without further ado, let's begin. It is a big day on the channel, 2025 NFL Draft official quarterback rankings with Marcus Whitman, host of the YouTube channel That Franchise Guy. Marcus, how are we doing?
I'm doing good. It's always fun to talk draft, especially with you, and talk about these quarterbacks with someone else. I watched all these guys back in like early January, so good to kind of touch up and have some fun combos. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So we're just going to go ahead and dive right in. I'm just going to be fully transparent. These are my quarterback rankings, 9 through 1. So we're going in reverse order, and we are going to start with Quinn Ewers. Quinn Ewers is from Texas. Here's what I wrote down. Quinn was an elite high school prospect. Unfortunately, never took the steps needed to become an elite NFL draft prospect. The biggest thing with Quinn at the collegiate level that I don't see getting better at the NFL level is how consistent he is as a player. And I think the consistent thing with Quinn at the collegiate level was just how consistent he was. You never knew what player you were going to get on a down-to-down basis. And for reference, in the regular season of 2024, he had just 10 big-time throws to 15 turnover-worthy plays, with, you guessed it, 7 in the Georgia game alone in the regular season. And he did play better in the second Georgia game, but the first game was really, really tough. He's a big time starer whenever he's in the pocket. I don't think he has the field awareness you'd like to see from an NFL quarterback, and repeatedly throws hospital balls, which is obviously not good. Under pressure in 2024, he had just 3 big time throws to 8 turnover worthy plays, and that's pretty alarming, to put it mildly. And I don't think anyone knows, including Quinn, where the ball is going on throws 20 plus yards from the line of scrimmage. And he completed just 12 of 32 passes to his left side from 10 yards or beyond, which I do think is pretty noteworthy because that was a substantial drop off from the right side for Quinn. And there was a ball against Clemson in the playoffs where Quinn threw it from the 22-yard line to the opposing 35-yard line, so roughly a 45-yard throw. He didn't set his feet despite having the opportunity to do so, underthrew what should have been a touchdown. Credit to Quinn. He does have touch on his passes, but I also think there's a point where he has too much touch on his passes, and it can lead to hospital balls that don't need to be hospital balls to begin with. So the biggest thing with Quinn that I don't think is going to change once he gets to the NFL is his consistency and the lack of awareness. I don't think that he's going to go from the SEC to the NFL and improve as a guy that is already very inconsistent.
Boy, yeah. I hope Quinn Ewers' family isn't watching this video, but unfortunately, the truth does hurt sometimes. And you put it really well, the lack of consistency, just not knowing what you're going to get play in, play out. I do think some of the high-end plays you do see from him are what not suck you in, but at least allude to the high recruiting background, why he's in the conversation in this draft to begin with. You do have to point out, like, he battled through a shoulder injury in his final year, which I do think really hurts the consistency when it comes to how well the ball was coming out of his arm and where the ball ultimately ended up. But even going back to the 2023 season, when I saw a lot of him kind of second-handedly watching all those incredible playmakers they had in 2023, Adonai Mitchell and Worthy and the Sanders at tight end, a pair of running backs, like, man, they had a really talented team. You felt that his game was just all over the place then too. But I do think the arm talent's there, and there are some really incredible anticipation throws. I think he was maybe the only quarterback in this draft that would actually recognize a cover 2 and just laser in a hole shot down the sideline. So, like, there are some splash plays in there, but what comes in the 5, 6, 7 plays in between there is just really frustrating. And above all, man, the lack of pocket feel, that just kind of natural feel for how the rush is breaking down, where to go with his feet, that just it leads to a general discomfort for him that I think attributes to his lack of consistency across the board. So just not really getting a lot of creation from him at all. And yeah, he's a guy that just, to me, doesn't really pass the vibes test either. And someone that if I'm drafting, I'm probably just going to let someone else take him, because I think there's other guys that we're going to talk about here today that would probably be available and I like a lot better.
I'm with you, and I did want to preface this. I did forget to specifically preface this with Quinn's going to be the player that I'm the most down on. He's my 9th ranked quarterback in the 2025 class. I am not a fan of, hey, let's take this 21, 22-year-old kid. Let's just make a video on them. Let's rip them apart. Let's point out every single weakness. But within a quarterback ranking video that's going to be an hour long or so, you have to, he's going to be talked about. So it's just a small portion. I wish Quinn the best. But one tweet that I had, because I remember tweeting it last summer, I threw on some Quinn Ewers tape last July, just a little preseason. Let's just give me an idea of what I'm going to be looking at, what I'm prepared for. I threw on Quinn Ewers tape last July. The first 3 throws were a bat down by a defensive lineman and 1 throw each behind the receivers that you mentioned, Xavier Worthy and Adonai Mitchell. I couldn't agree more with the let somebody else draft him. And again, I do wish Quinn the best, but he's not my cup of tea. I think the best couple of word summary for him as a prospect is consistently inconsistent, but the highs, they are, when they're there, and I'll leave it at that. So next quarterback here, number 8 on the rankings, and Marcus does not know the rankings, by the way. So for you guys he's finding out as you guys are. My number 8 quarterback in the 2025 class is Oregon's Dillon Gabriel. I wrote down for Dillon Gabriel, experienced quarterback that's been battle tested countless times throughout his collegiate career. Over the last 2 years of his collegiate career, he took significantly less sacks than he did early on, and his pressure to sack percentage dropped significantly as his career progressed. I think this is especially noteworthy for Gabriel because he's a very small quarterback, will be limited with his arm as it's nowhere near other players, even in this class for that matter. But he does a lot of the little things right, which I do think is huge. He has good touch with the football. He can get out of the pocket and move around more than you may think for a player his size. And more often than not, he's not going to put the ball in harm's way, which is huge, especially for what I project to be a future backup quarterback. I think a lot of teams will unfortunately take him off their boards due to physical limitations and because he is a scheme-specific player. You can tell when you watch Gabriel on tape, the velocity on the football is not there, nor is the grand slam 60-plus yard throws, but he projects everything you want in a backup quarterback. He's smart, accurate, and I think he can scoot, which I do love in a quarterback, and I think that's arguably the biggest thing that I know may be ironic because, let me back up here. I know this may be ironic because of the Ohio State game, but everyone in that game from Oregon, the biggest thing with Gabriel is he's not going to lose you football games. Now, I know they didn't play well against Ohio State, obviously, in the playoffs. That's kind of what I meant by more often than not, he's not going to lose you football games, which is huge. But Dillon Gabriel will also turn 25 years old in December. I'd be pretty surprised if he's not in the NFL at age 30 in some capacity, meaning I think he will be a backup player for a long time. I have an early 6th round grade on him and a pro comparison of a more mobile Tua with less juice in the arm.
Yeah. No, I think it's a good breakdown. I'm definitely a little higher on him, though. I've got him more as a late 3rd, early 4th round guy, and I'm at least open to the concept that he could be more of a starter in the league. I think you nailed it with just doesn't take negative plays and raises the floor. He started 60 games. I think he's the 2nd highest passing yards collector in college football history. It goes back to the old Hal Mummy verbiage, kind of the author of the air raid, like never say no to an open pass. And Dillon Gabriel is never going to say no to an open pass. If it's there, if it's schemed up, he's going to hit it. He's going to hit it on time. He's going to hit it with pretty good accuracy as well. I think he also raises the floor by avoiding negative plays when it comes to potential sacks. I question if he always knows when and how to use his feet when it comes to when pressure isn't there. It comes back to some of that pocket feel stuff I talked about with Quinn Ewers. But if pressure does get in quickly, senses it, really good athlete, avoids sacks, and always knows where his check down is. So he will keep you on time. He can play point guard. And I think at least as a very high floor backup, he's got something there. But I do think the deep accuracy is something that not a lot of quarterbacks in this sort of breadth have, and he has it. He can throw the deep ball with excellent touch. He's arguably the most accurate deep ball thrower in this entire class. So I do think if you're talking about, you put this into kind of one of those Shanahan style systems, a system that's going to do the best job at making sure the structure is there, that, as we said, he can take advantage of it. He can open up the field a little bit more than a lot of your typical backups. Like we decided not to talk about Max Brosmer here today. Like he doesn't really have the deep ball in his bag. He does. So to me, he does have a little bit more of a punter's chance at maybe being kind of a top 24 starter in the league. But the physical limitations are definitely there. The last thing I will say, some people are comparing him to Bryce Young and Kyler and Russell Wilson, some of these shorter quarterbacks like him. He doesn't improvise the way those guys do.
Right.
He's athletic. I don't think his arm is as good. I don't think his field vision on the move is as good. And like I said, he doesn't really know when to use his feet all the time. I watched him, I think I did 3 or 4 games on him, and I really just wanted him to scramble more instead of taking checkdowns, throwing short of the sticks. So definitely had some more creative limitations than some other shorter quarterbacks that I've liked.
For sure. And I also think with Russ, 10 years ago, Russ, I mean, he had a cannon especially for his size. And Russ is, I mean, there was the last couple of years have certainly, taken their toll, but there was a legit conversation about Russ being a future Hall of Famer. So I think what you said best with point guard and the Bryce Young, just to distribute the football and basically not lose games is where, I mean, that's a role for Dillon Gabriel, that if he can excel at that, or if he can continue to do that, then he should have a role in the NFL for a long time, despite him almost turning 25 in December. So like I said, I like him as a career backup, and again, wish the best for him. Now, number 7 is Kyle McCord. Kyle McCord, I wrote down the first thing that I have on the scouting report is career backup, threw 34 touchdowns to 12 picks last year. Also had 36 big-time throws, but led the FBS with 24 turnover-worthy plays. Really good fundamentals, enough talent to hang around the NFL for a long time. Thought he did a good job of anticipating throws during his final year at Syracuse. And while there were times he would stare guys down on comebacks or fades or even out routes, it was kind of a stare down. And I use this lightly because this is definitely not my comparison for Kyle McCord, but you know where I'm going, or where I'm coming from here is there were times back in the 2013, 14, 15 area where Aaron Rodgers would stare down like a prime Jordy before the ball is snapped, knowing he's going there the entire time, and just whip it out, and there's nothing the defense could do. And there were times, obviously not to that efficiency or level of a prime first ballot Hall of Famer, but there were times where McCord showed anticipation and a high football IQ to know that the play is almost to give me before the play even starts. So I did like that from him. Gunslinger mentality that led him to have 7 turnover-worthy plays when working in the intermediate middle of the field in 2024. He has confidence in himself. There's absolutely no denying that. But the difference between him and other NFL starters is the arm talent. With some of the throws he makes or attempts to make, I think it would even be borderline arm arrogance for a guy like Josh Allen. I truly respect him trying to make the plays, but he's not good enough to make some of those plays. And what I mean, or not necessarily not good enough, but he doesn't have the arm strength to make those types of throws. And that kind of led to 24 turnover-worthy plays last year. And the stare down at times, I mentioned it in a good way, it can also work the opposite. And it does cost him at times. The Pitt game cost him on a couple of interceptions. And I like Kyle McCord for what he is, and I think you're going to like this pro comparison. I put Kenny Pickett with the Jameis Winston mentality. Stylistically, Kenny Pickett. Obviously, the Jameis mentality is pretty self-explanatory. But
I think that's pretty good. I think that's a good combo. Yeah. So what kind of round?
Good call. I did forget that. I put mid to late 4th round for Kyle McCord.
Okay, so you're not too far off of me. I've definitely got him as a day 2 option. I'm higher on McCord too. The biggest thing that I would start with him is just how much better he got from Ohio State to Syracuse, and just his kind of trajectory fascinates me. We've seen a list of guys now transfer around their 3rd year, 4th year, they're like, a little better than where they came from. And then 5th year, it's like, boom, this is like a first-round NFL quarterback prospect. So I'm talking about Joe Burrow, Jaden Daniels.
Those are
Who
the two
else
that I
am I?
thought of. Those are
Yeah,
the two
Bo
that I thought of.
Nix.
Yeah, Bo
Bo
would be a good one,
Nix.
right?
And there's one more guy that I'm drawing a blank, but this has become more and more common in the era of the transfer quarterback. And he tried to get that 5th year of eligibility
Oh,
to
by the
kind
way,
of have that.
Cam
Ward, yeah,
Cam
in this
Ward would be a
draft,
good one.
another
Yeah.
one. But now it's driving me crazy trying to think of there's one more, but I'm sure the viewers are just screaming it at us right now.
Right.
But anyway, he tried to get that 5th year, apparently. And he wanted to kind of have that last year to show like, look, like I'm really, going in the right trajectory. Apparently, because those 2020, 2021 Ohio State teams were just murdering teams. He got too much playing time coming in garbage time that the NCAA said those don't count as redshirt seasons for you. So he had to declare. But I think if you look at if he were to come back next year, you'd line him right up with where Bo Nix was and Jaden Daniels and Joe Burrow, like the year before the final breakout. And I really think the trajectory, there's some fascination there with him, that might have happened. Not saying it's going to be Joe Burrow or Jaden Daniels, but maybe Bo Nix. But for me, he has a trait that really stood out consistently on film. The way I described it in my video is he feels like, and you alluded to seeing a very similar thing, I think. It feels like he has like a mechanism in his brain just as the ball's about to leave his hand, where it's like, okay, I've made my decision. Maybe not always the best decision, as you said with the interceptions, but the decision's been made. I'm throwing the ball. Now, where is the absolute best place that this ball needs to go so that I can either give my receiver the better chance on a 50-50 ball, or am I making sure I'm leading my receiver on a crossing route? Are there swarming zone defenders that I got to make sure I leverage the ball away from? His ball placement is right next to Shedeur Sanders in terms of like the best true, like thoughtful ball placement. I think it's a really nice trait of his. So that stood out to me. And I think he's just a really instinctive improviser as well. I see a lot of Brock Purdy and Baker Mayfield in his game. So I do definitely think, like, obviously the turnovers, if he's throwing as many picks as he does, if he's staring down receivers, he has an overconfident processor. I want a confident processor. If he can't continue to develop that, he's going to get himself in trouble too often, and he's not going to be a starter. But if he can just work on some of that stuff, the arm talent isn't amazing, but I do think you're talking about someone that could actually be one of these surprise day 2 QBs that ends up kind of one of those tier 3 starters in the league.
I agree with everything you said about Kyle McCord, and I know I said career backup, but the thing is, we could start to shed that career backup label if he can just, eliminate the negatives. And that is one thing that I do like about Dillon Gabriel that I wish Kyle McCord had more of, was just eliminate the negatives from the game. And they're a lot of them are very fixable. But next up is a player I really like, and it's Will Howard. Wrote down for Will Howard. He's an athletic quarterback, solid arm, a lot of games underneath his belt, over 1,200 passing attempts at the collegiate level. Definitely a veteran college quarterback. He's an accurate passer who reads the field and progresses through concepts, has good touch on the football, and had the second lowest pressure to sack ratio in the class, ahead of only Tyler Shough. Howard has good awareness within the pocket, and unlike Shough, did not throw the ball away as much as he did, as in less than half of what Shough did for comparison. There's a lot of solid physical tools with Howard, and his athleticism and ability to get out of trouble is certainly one of them. His turnover-worthy percentage is a lot higher than I'd like for a player who has as much football underneath his belt as Will Howard has. For reference, unfortunately, he had 2 big-time throws to 8 turnover-worthy plays under pressure in 2024. Combine that with the fact he will turn 24 during his rookie year, and with what I project to be a pretty limited ceiling, this is kind of why I think Howard is an early day 3 pick. But again, I like him for what he is. And in a lot of ways, he's a more mobile version of Kyle McCord. I think both players are going to be career backups that have the ability to spot start and are guys that can keep the defense honest. I also worry with Will Howard that his playmakers will not be as good against the competition as they were this past year. Now, I know he didn't have MHJ and JSN and the whole gang the way CJ Stroud did, but a lot of the time there were wide open throws for Will Howard, as in more than you would expect from an average NFL team, or at least an average NFL receiver, rather. And for Will Howard, he has an average NFL arm, but he's pretty athletic for his size, and I think he is a fun backup, and I have him as an early 4th round grade pro comparison. Another interesting one here, Tyson Bagent.
Tyson Bagent. All right. Yeah, poor Will Howard. He only had 2 first-round wide receivers to throw to. Just down bad compared to his Ohio State predecessors. Okay, I have Howard a little lower. I do have a 4th to a 5th round grade on him, so I guess I'm just higher on some of the other guys. The main difference I'm a little lower on Howard is the lack of creativity. To me, he's very much kind of that drop and shoot style. Like he wants to hit the top of his drop. He wants to show off his arm. He wants to make the big time throw. Not a whole lot of evaluating the pocket, how it's breaking down, second guessing himself in a good way, saying, okay, maybe just throwing this fade isn't the best option for me, which rarely happens at Ohio State. Throwing a fade to, the receivers they have is usually a good option for him, but that alludes to some of the drop off and relative competition. But yeah, the lack of creativity did bother me. When a blitz came in and he was forced to use his legs, you do see the athleticism, and that's enticing. He's a tough evaluation though, because if all you do is watch the college football playoffs, which were the first few games I started with on him, and I had a tweet, I was like, why is he not getting like QB3 buzz? Like, he was awesome in the playoffs. But you go back and watch the Michigan game, even the last game of the regular season, and some of his other games throughout the course of the regular season, he doesn't look that good. He stares down reads, and definitely the lack of creativity. I think he was much more inaccurate during the regular season, whereas during the college football playoffs, it felt like he was on the money. So it just adds a lot of kind of fog of war to the whole thing, because it's like, what does that mean? Did he get hot? Was this a Nick Foles situation? Or is this more like one of his Ohio State predecessors, CJ Stroud, who had the Georgia game, and that was the best game of his season? He had some man moments throughout the course of the year. Turns out that didn't really matter. CJ Stroud was just Georgia game CJ Stroud in the league. So that's just a really tough place to land. Like, what do you make of that? If he is the guy he was in the college football playoffs and something was clicking, because this was his first year at Ohio State, correct? He transferred over from Kansas State.
Come from Kansas State,
so,
yes.
If it was, okay, he's now in his 10th, 11th, 12th game, 13th, 14th, how many they play in college football playoffs, like 16 games now. He's really starting to get comfortable with his receivers, his playmakers. Maybe that is what you can expect in the NFL once he kind of settles into a new offense. So that was really interesting with me on Howard. I have him as an early day 3 guy and probably more of a backup, but he is a little bit more of that kind of boom or bust dart throw in that range, I think, with some upside.
Yeah, and especially with the physical upside that Howard has. I know this is cliche. I mean, but he's kind of sneaky athletic at times. I like him. I like him a lot for what he is. Now, I say this, I kind of preface this. If I say I like a prospect for what he is, generally they are at minimum day 2. A lot of the time, day 3 prospects. With a trait here or there that I can sell myself on. That if I were a GM, I would say, hey, do we need that type of guy in the room? Do we need that type of player at this position? But with Will Howard, I think it would be a pretty easy sell if you are in need of a backup quarterback. Tyler Shough is up. He is, for me, QB5.
Dang.
What?
I was hoping you were going to be as high on him as me.
I like him. I like him for what he is. Now, well, you're gonna like the comp here. I'll just say that. Right. You'll like the comp. But the preface here, he'll turn 26 early in the 25 season. Kind of puts him behind the 8 ball as a prospect. Let's see here. He's a really good arm, and he can push the ball down the field without a problem. He put together a good final year at Louisville, finished the year with 23 touchdowns to just six interceptions, had 21 big-time throws to 8 turnover-worthy plays. Now, one thing that I noticed on tape, I don't know if you noticed this, but I more than other quarterbacks, I couldn't believe how many passes were dropped. During the 24 season, he had an 8.6% drop rate, and that's per PFF. It's pretty high compared to other players in this class. Yeah, and the reason I bring that up is because he had a 62% completion rate, but again, per PFF, he had an adjusted 75.1% completion rate, which factors in the drops and everything, because, if you hit a guy between the numbers, whether it's Justin Jefferson, whether it's a collegiate receiver at Louisville, he should catch the football. And that's one of the biggest things. He has good vision. He plays comfortable within the pocket when he has time, and he can hit any throw on the field. Under pressure is a little bit of a different story. When he was kept clean, his completion percentage was over 70% when He was under pressure, it dropped down to 42%. Now, he had a low pressure to sack percentage of just 9.3%, the best in the class, but he threw the ball away a lot. And I know Tyler Shough has a substantial injury history. He had 3 straight years of injuries from 21 to 23. But that, I don't know. I mean, is he going to throw out of plays and take an intentional grounding penalty in the NFL? I don't know. I thought the high throwaway was something to note because of the low pressure to sack percentage combined with just how often he threw the ball away. So I did at least want to note that. I don't think I've ever said that about a quarterback prospect, by the way, just with the relative percentages there. And I don't know if that's due to his injury history, whatever the case may be. But he has solid mobility for his size. He ran a 4.63 at the combine. I don't think that always translates to the football field the way you'd think, at least consistently. And obviously there's flashes of him, getting out of the pocket. I don't know if I'd say it's 4.63 game fast, if that makes sense. But overall, like him as a prospect, operates best within the pocket and is overall a really talented player. But the age is a big concern combined with the injury history. I have him as a mid-third round, early to mid-third round. Pro comparison, a blend between Will Levis and a young Joe Flacco.
Okay. You said I was going to like the pro comp. I don't know how I like
a young
that.
Joe Flacco. I mean, 50 wins, first 5 years, Super Bowl champion, 11 touchdowns, 0 interceptions.
Elite quarterback, Joe Flacco.
Elite Dragon, Ravens Nation. I got you guys, even though you're probably not watching because you have your quarterback situation figured out, but I got you guys.
So I know it sounds like I'm like gassing all these quarterbacks up. My pro comp on him was dollar store Joe Burrow.
Wow.
But I understand.
Okay.
I understand.
Okay.
I understand.
Yeah.
But so just a couple notes on some of the things you said. I do think the 4.63, I actually didn't know that he ran a 4.63 at the combine, but that totally checks out. I think when he clears, he's not a creative runner. He doesn't break a lot of tackles, but when he clears into space, he has really good speed, some of the best speed in the class. And you pair that with something that I wanted to get to on him is like his feel in the pocket, the way he can sense pressure, know where his step up lanes are, when he needs to scramble. It's behind only Cam Ward in this class in terms of just knowing how to manage the pocket. Most of the time, he has probably the most frustrating and confusing thing about his evaluation is I think the feel inside the pocket is excellent until a couple of these games, the Notre Dame game especially, when his offensive line, you mentioned his receivers were bad, his offensive line was horrible too. When his offensive line later in the game really started to get him in trouble, like quickly, his pocket presence went out the window. It reminded me of Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. He got that pocket trauma. And a guy that has had 3 season-ending injuries that's making a push to get to the NFL, he did have to make some decisions with his body to look at the rush and not see some stuff developing down the field and throw the ball a little bit too much. So that's tough to know exactly what to do with. It can happen to any quarterback, as I described with Mahomes, but it's in there. It's something to think about. The check down stuff, I actually think it's one of the strengths in his game. If you watch the film on some of these check downs, he's getting instant pressure and he has to like contort his body and like bend his arm. It's like a scene from Wanted just to get the ball to the check down. I think he has an incredible awareness for where that check down is, and uses it as a last resort because he was in trouble so much. And it just really stood out to me on film, like how good he was at avoiding sacks between some of the pocket presence and avoiding rushers and stuff, plus how he used his check down. Now, the biggest issue on top of all of this is, and why the dollar store Joe Burrow comp is hard. Joe Burrow is a headhunter in terms of like, if he sees the opportunity for a big play, he's going to find it down the field. Tyler Shough has more like backup quarterback eyes. I think he gives up on routes. He doesn't let them develop as long as he should. He doesn't necessarily look to push the ball downfield as much as he could. There are some really good throws on film earlier in games or when things are going well, when he has protection, where you do see him hit those throws though. So I think it's in there if he could be in a system that he can trust a little bit more. This was his first year, like starting out of 7 years. And I think you saw a guy that had the best footwork in the class, arguably the best processing and decision-making in the class. If he was 7 years old and looked raw, I'd be really worried. But he looks like a guy that's been developing for 3 years. Being 25, 26 years old doesn't bother me quite as much, at the quarterback position. So I don't know, man. I have him as QB3. I would be comfortable with him kind of inside the top 50, second round, second to a third round grade for me on Shough. And he's just a guy that I'm willing to gamble on, even if the age and the injuries, and so there are definitely some red flags going up with him. I just think the eye test and the it factor from him is so much better than a guy like Jaxson Dart or Jalen Milroe, in my opinion.
I understand where you're coming from. And by the way, I did want to add on one thing about the Notre Dame game. That one touchdown, the one, like the one, well, that was that's all you got to say. If you know, or it was just a chef's kiss drop in the bucket. I can get behind that quarterback, whether he's 25 or 35 or 65. I can get behind it. Yeah. No,
talk about bending bullets like Wanted. Like he's falling down and does like a 360 no scope to the back end of the end zone is just one of the throws of the year for sure.
That was one where it was like, ooh, that's pretty. No matter, well, I don't care who you are. That's a beautiful ball.
It's like that and Cam Ward's touchdown against Florida where he's rolling left and hits. Those are to me like the two best.
Like if you can like cock back and then that's but one thing that I also did want to say about Tyler Shough, last thing, and then we'll move on to quarterback 4, was you said you had him around top 50, and then you said late 2, early 3 grade. So we're not too far off in terms of grade. I had him early to mid 3rd, so we're not too far off. Sure. But quarterback 4, Jalen Milroe. Wrote down here, very fun prospect. He's right now more of an athlete than an NFL quarterback. Saying he is a great athlete at the quarterback position would be a tremendous understatement. His speed is up there with Lamar, but that doesn't mean he's Lamar Jackson. Not even close. He has a tremendous arm the same way Lamar does. He doesn't have the touch on the – actually, he doesn't quite have the arm strength Lamar does, but he's a really good arm. But he doesn't have the touch Lamar does, and he's certainly not consistent. You never know which player you're going to get. And the big thing with Jalen is there's plays where he looks like a future star in the NFL. And in the next drive, he looks like a guy that's not playable aside from gimmicky run plays or short one-read plays, basically RPOs. Despite how fun he can be as a player, he had 11 fumbles on 150 rushing attempts this past year. Obviously, that's not good to begin with. I do want it to be known, though, that rushing attempts in college are also sacks. So in theory, everybody watching this video has more collegiate rushing yards than Peyton Manning because he actually has negative career rushing yards. I at least wanted that to be noted. Just wanted that to be out there with the rushing attempts. But even if you factor that in, the sacks in, that's still not good no matter what. I had 13 fumbles in 2023 on 129 carries. So at least it went down a little bit. 13 on 129 is more than 10%. 11 for 150 is still very bad. And it's not even bad. It's like astronomically bad. So I just want to note that. And the one thing here with Jalen Milroe that I have not seen anybody discuss on Twitter, on YouTube, and if you have, I apologize for not seeing it, but he was 10 of 35 on throws down the field to his left, 10 or more yards beyond the line of scrimmage, which is just 28.5% completion rate. He was, and for reference, on the right side, he was, on his arm side, if you will, he was on the same throws, 10 or more yards from the line of scrimmage. He was 21 of 36, which is 58.3%. That's any throw 10 or more yards down the field on that side. That's obviously going to have to be worked on if he wants to be an NFL starting quarterback. For reference, he was 3 of 15 on deep throws, 20 or more yards down the field, working to his left in 2024. He threw 11 interceptions this past year, but he threw just 16 touchdowns to 11 picks. But it is worth noting he had a 5 to 10 TD to INT ratio in SEC play. My overall thoughts on Jalen Milroe is he's a very fun backup. He needs at least 1 year before consistently seeing the field. I think his pro comparison right now is a faster Jalen Hurts that struggles the same way a young Jalen Hurts did once upon a time. He should be on the field within the 5-yard line in the red zone situations as a rookie. You have him down in that 5 or 10-yard line. That is the time to bring Jalen Milroe in the game, at least early on. I think he has the second highest ceiling in this class, and I have a late 2, early 3 grade on Jalen Milroe.
Yeah, I think very similarly of him. I've got a true 3rd round grade on him. He's QB6 for me. Same overall grade as Kyle McCord. I do think what's interesting with him, tiny hands, 8.5-inch hands. Yes. And I think you pair that with his footwork's a disaster. So you pair tiny hands with horrible footwork. I think that's what leads to just the overall inconsistent throws. Like whether it's I through 4 games, I don't know if you feel the same way. I couldn't get a read on his real arm talent. Like I know what the high end throws look like where he can really zip it, but there's balls where he's like short arming an out route, and it's like, can you get it there? What's going on? I don't know that he's consistently gripping the ball, and he's definitely not consistently stepping towards his target, throwing it, where his eyes and his feet are married together. It's just a complete, we got to rework this from the ground up. There's no like repeatable mechanics for him. And I think that leads to just everything getting off, thrown off with the processing, the decision-making, everything. Right now, a true first read and run quarterback outside of a couple plays a game where it almost feels like he walks up to the line and makes the decision of like, I'm going to show scouts that I can make my second read throws. Cause I felt like if you just loaded those in, half of them, he's actually passing up an open read to then go to the second read. It almost felt like he's like, I'm going to show off that I can do it. I don't know if it's forced or, if I'm just, talking about my butt on that, but 90% of the time he's going to make his first read. He's good at avoiding mistakes and not forcing it if it's not there. And then he's going to take off and run where he doesn't even really keep the ball up to throw a lot. It's a lot of times he's tucking it and running and just being he's scrambling to run instead of scrambling to throw. So, complete got to work from the ground up. Honestly, and I hate to even bring this conversation there, but there is an added upside on him. If you get 2 years into his career, I think he could be an elite running back in the NFL. I really do. I know. But I mean, he's 6'1.5", 225 pounds. He's got incredible speed. 36 missed tackles forced in 2023, like 31 last year. Look, Jalen Milroe has every right to go and try to develop as a quarterback and start as a quarterback and all that. But 4 years at Alabama and the mechanics, the processing are a complete disaster still. If we're 2 more years into his NFL career, what are we doing at this point? Do you want to be a backup and maybe you can be one of the better backups in the league that does have a great career and makes a lot of money and doesn't have to play a ton? It's a good job. Don't get me wrong. I think he could be a superstar talent at the running back position. I'm not just saying it because I doubt that he can be a quarterback. I'm saying it because I really think he'd be a special running back prospect. So it's something, and we've seen it before with quarterbacks making transitions. Terrell Pryor, Taysom Hill was essentially a tight end at this point.
Julian
Edelman, the shoelace from Michigan, Robinson.
Denard Robinson.
He had a decent running back career in the league. So it's not like this is unheard of. That to me, if you're getting him in the 3rd round, can the second half of his rookie contract actually be spent on him being a superstar running back for you? Look, I know he doesn't want to do that right now, but if that changes in 2 years, it's a real conversation for me at least.
I do agree with that. I like Jalen again for what he is. But acting like there would be, or acting like he's a flawless prospect would be downright ignorant. I mean, we had conversations a little, I guess, behind the scenes, if you will. Marcus and I were at the Senior Bowl together. We watched Jalen at Senior Bowl practice. It wasn't pretty. And there were throws that were not good. And that was, again, no disrespect to anybody that played at the Senior Bowl, but the competition level is only going up at the NFL level. So I completely understand why you would have him at quarterback 6. I like his game for what he is, but he's definitely a player that needs some time to develop. And that's the biggest thing. If you're a quarterback needy team, I know the Giants just signed Russ. I know Aaron Rodgers at the time of this is still a free agent, though I would imagine everybody expects him to sign with Pittsburgh. So I don't think there's going to be a need for anybody to draft, either Jackson Dart or Jalen Milroe in the 1st round at this point. But if you were to force him in the 1st round or even the top 35, 40 picks, that's doing him an extreme disservice. So I'll leave it at that. But like I said, late 2, early 3 for Jalen. Pro comparison, a faster Jalen Hurts that struggles the same way a young Jalen Hurts did. Now, I tweeted this out. Let's see here. I tweeted this out Tuesday night, a couple nights ago. I wrote down hand notes for a couple of guys. So we have
all right
notes written out. So Jackson Dart, he's a fun prospect who has good physical tools, paired with the accuracy to hit NFL throws. He had a big time throw percentage of 7.1%, which was the best of any quarterback in the 25 class, and nearly a full percent higher than Cam Ward, who had a big time throw percentage of 6.3%. Also had a turnover worthy play percentage of just 2.2% and threw just 6 interceptions in his final year. Does a really good job of protecting the football. There's a stipulation with that we'll discuss in a minute. My big concern with Dart is a lot of his production was system-based, and this is kind of the stipulation here, and that he will not have this luxury in the NFL that he did in college. There's also times on tape where he makes a 50-plus yard throw while getting hit, and that's great, good for him. But there's also times where it's a predetermined throw more often than not, and you referenced like a movie thing earlier where it's like there's times where Jaxson Dart is similar to Jalen Milroe, how you said like the first read will be open and then he'll just go to the second read just to basically show scouts that he can do it. I feel like with Jaxson Dart, there were times when he would make these big throws down the sideline where he sees the edge beat either a tight end that's on him or beats a tackle, waits for them to get 2 yards away, starts his windup, and then just delivers it. And then it's a highlight reel play, obviously, and you still have to make the throw. But I feel like there's times where it's like he's waiting to get hit and then to make the play. And if you watch the tape, like you understand what I'm talking about. And obviously, you know what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
It's I just feel like it's not. I mean, it's authentic. Obviously, that's not the word that I want to use. I just feel like it's not what it could be made out to be, or what people could make it out to be, if that makes sense. So his pressure to sack ratio over his final 2 years was 19%. That's obviously bad. Overall, fun developmental prospect that has a lot of physical tools that will ultimately be an NFL. It would be on an NFL coaching staff to get the bad plays out of him. I'd like him to sit for a year in a perfect world. Mid to late 2 pro comparison, Brock Purdy.
Yeah, I'm pretty much spot on. I feel like I don't need to add too much. I will give him credit. I think he's just looking at my grades for accuracy. Him and Tyler Shough got the best accuracy grades in terms of consistently hitting their mark. I think he has very good, repeatable mechanics and good touch and a good arm. He's got really good accuracy. That's probably his best trait. To me, pocket feel. It comes back to that. Like he doesn't have that it factor. And I hate, everybody hates when you just drop it factor because it sounds lazy, but it is that ability to just feel the decompression of the pocket. Do I need to just step left and avoid my right guard that just got beat? There's room in the pocket to step up and make a clean throw. Like you mentioned, he's getting hit all the time. He's taking all these sacks. If he just felt the pocket better, he could just have a clean platform so much more consistently to make these big throws. I had the same exact note, but from a different angle. Like he makes these throws getting hit and you're like, wow, that's really impressive. But you watch it on film and you're like, you stepped up into that throw. Like your guard was slowly getting pushed back. He wasn't losing. It was just natural decomposition. There was room for you to just step back, take a hitch and throw it. He doesn't feel that space. And it also leads to him throwing the ball short of the sticks on third downs, which just drives. When there's room to extend, there's room to navigate the pocket. He doesn't feel it out. He feels rushed. He takes those checkdowns a little early, and he'll bail out of clean pockets against 3-man rushes, which is another thing that just drives me up the wall. So to me, are in his game where I actually battle with him as this developmental quarterback, because it's like, I agree with everything you're saying, but how high are we really developing him to be at the end of the day? So he's kind of caught in between that sort of like needs to sit and develop, but also he's kind of ready. He's okay. I don't love him. I don't hate him. I've got him as QB4, second to a third round grade. Could see him becoming kind of an Andy Dalton, a Derek Carr type of guy. I could see him being Drew Lock is my low end comp on him as well. So I don't know. That's just kind of where I'm at. I don't really have strong opinions on him, but I just don't really find myself gravitating towards him as a prospect either.
So when you said Drew Lock, it sounded like you said Drew Luck, and I was like, "Oh, Andrew Luck." No, so I understand where you're coming from, though. So next up on the notes page, let's go. We have Shedeur Sanders, 3,900 yards last year, 33 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, 26 big time throws to 8 turnover worthy plays. He's a really interesting prospect. Despite the media and noise during his time at Colorado, Shedeur does a lot of things right. I know the media wants to just say things that aren't true and just make things that aren't out to be. But he's a really good pocket passer with accuracy at all levels of the field. Does not waver under pressure or in big moments, and he has the utmost confidence in himself. He had the lowest turnover-worthy play percentage while under pressure in the 2025 draft class at just 1.8%, which is phenomenal. He shows really good touch on passes when he needs to, and while his arm obviously isn't the strongest, and we'll get to the pro comparison in a minute, there were multiple times on tape of him dropping passes in a bucket 45 to 50 plus yards down the field from far hash. I tweeted a clip out specifically last week. If anybody wants to go back and find that, it was a really good throw. I mean, there's multiple times on tape. There was a Haas wide juke concept. I think it was against Oklahoma State. He threw his receiver open. When he let go of the ball, the receiver was even with the DB. You know the old saying, if he's even, he's leaving. In a bucket, 45 yards down the field while getting drilled. Phenomenal play from Shedeur in that specific pass. He had a completion percentage of 55.1% under pressure in 2024 with an average depth of target of 11.9 yards. So I think that's pretty good, all things considered. One of the negative things about Shedeur is he can take a few too many hits at times, also drifts a bit further than you'd like in the pocket, which is kind of a double negative because he doesn't have the elite arm to make up for that when he's already drifting. If given the time, he can pick a defense apart, and he can also get out of trouble more than you would think. And for that reason, when you factor all of this in, a player that can pick you apart, if he's given time, he can get out of trouble. He's not going to lose you many games. He's accurate, all things considered. My pro comparison for him, none other than the legend, Teddy Bridgewater.
Yeah, I see a lot of Teddy Bridgewater. I have a Jalen, not Jalen Hurts. We're not going down that.
That's your boy. That's your boy. That's your boy.
Brock Purdy is my kind of comp on him. Yeah, the ability to play in structure. I think his best trait, you described it well, the ability to throw the ball with placement, just like I said with McCord earlier. I mean, he'll throw to the outside shoulder away from a corner. He'll set balls in the right spot against a zone coverage so that the receiver is able to catch the ball without getting popped by a safety. Like, he's very thoughtful about where he puts the ball. I will say two things that people say a lot on Shedeur that I disagree with a lot. Number one, that he is incredibly accurate. He sprays a lot of throws and he drifts a lot of throws out of bounds on the deep ball. I think he's got good accuracy. I think he misses a lot more throws than people give him credit for because of some of those high ball placement throws. His best throws show elite ball placement, elite accuracy, but he does miss his mark a fair share. It's not bad accuracy, but he does miss over the middle. You'll see it get picked. And again, he'll have receivers open down the sideline. He'll float it out of bounds. And a lot of that ties into a lack of arm talent, which you talked about. So that bothers me a little bit, that I just don't think he's as accurate as he gets credit for. And what drives me even more crazy than that is when people say he throws with anticipation. I think that's one of his biggest weaknesses. I think he is one of these receivers. Bruce Arians wrote about this in his book, The Quarterback Whisperer. You want a quarterback that can throw with anticipation, that doesn't need to see the receiver open before he throws the ball. Way more often than not, if not all the time, I thought Shedeur needed to see the guy open before he pulled the trigger. Whether it's a crossing route where he could have thrown it 2 or 3 steps earlier on a wide receiver, or a speed out where he's throwing a receiver into trouble. If there's maybe a flat zone defender on the outside, he's throwing a speed out. If he throws that ball with anticipation into the spot in the zone, the receiver is able to catch it, turn upfield. Instead, he's catching it while he's getting hit by a zone defender cracking down. Comebackers, hitch routes, he is consistently late on them, where the ball should be out before the receiver turns around. He doesn't get rid of it on time. That really worries me with Shedeur in terms of talking about, is this a high upside player? I think he is creative. I think he can play on time. I think his best throws actually come on the run, where he's got really good touch and an ability to kind of torque those hips and make impressive creative plays on the move. Just like Brock Purdy, as I said, I think he can be a starter in the league in a best case scenario. But let's just get out of the way. You're the Giants at number 3. Would you take him there at number 3 if the board goes Cam Ward and let's say Abdul Carter at number 2? Would you take him there? Because I certainly would not.
Loaded question. In a perfect world, no. in the Giants world right now with their jobs on the line with, hey, I mean, I know they don't exactly make like, pennies, and especially, the coaches and GMs, but hey, our, kids being, it's not exactly like our kids being able to eat type thing because of the money that Brian Dable and Joe Shane are making. But for other coaches in the building, it's not the same situation. But I would rather not, short answer or long answer, I'd rather not take him. And I never said the grade, by the way, so I did want to add on to this. I have an early to mid, more closer to mid second round grade on Shedeur. And one thing that I did want to add is that you covered is when he misses bad. There was a clip. I also tweeted out a clip. I tweeted out a bad clip and a good clip of Shedeur. I was going through his tape. It was a recheck last week before the video, before I was writing notes down and everything. There was an interception against, it might have been Utah. It was one of the worst interceptions you'll see of anybody in this class. It was just a simple crossing route, not even a deep cross where the safety is just like lurking. He comes back, makes a good play. No, I'm talking directly to him. It was awful. It was a bad miss. But in a perfect world, I would not take Shedeur at number 3. In a perfect world, I wouldn't take him in the top probably 15 to 20. And I think he's, like I said, early to mid second round, but obviously we all know quarterbacks get pushed up the board.
Yeah, he would have been QB7 in last year's draft, in my opinion, behind all those guys. So, we see him pretty similarly. I have just adjusted for positional value. I have a late first, early second.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, and I would be in the same, but I just, anyway. So number 1 quarterback, it is none other than Cam Ward. Cam, for good and bad reasons, is a gunslinger that can get out of trouble. He has a really quick release, has really good playmaking instincts out of structure, and because of this, combined with his arm strength, I think there's flashes of Aaron Rodgers on tape. That's not the official comparison. We'll get to that in a minute. But he can big game hunt with the best of them, and his flashes are rare. The biggest thing he needs to work on at the pro level, especially because the windows will be tighter, is consistency. Within this, he can big game hunt too much and at times take unnecessary sacks, which is one of his flaws. I don't hold that too much against Cam as a prospect because that is very fixable trait once he gets to the league. Just throw the ball away. You're under pressure. Defenders coming, just flick it out of bounds. Not the biggest knack in the world that can't be worked on. I also suspect he will learn this fairly quickly. He can fire the ball in tight windows between zones, and he showed that repeatedly during his collegiate career. There was a beautiful throw from far hash cover 2 hole shot against USF that was, by every definition, an NFL throw. I know there were some negative plays within the Cal game. The one interception back to the middle of the field was but there were several big-time plays within that game, and the drop pass down the middle of the field was one of them. That should convince you Cam Ward is an NFL starting quarterback. Obviously, there are a lot of low-light plays from him when he is extending the play on tape, but you take the good with the bad with Wild Man Cam. He has the arm velocity to hit any throw on the field, and his ability to extend the play at times is special. Mid to late first-round grade, pro comparison, Caleb Williams.
Wow. We're already dropping Caleb into the mid to first round QB comps.
It was hey, I had other comps for other guys. I brought up Aaron Rodgers at times, so so actually, what? His comparison is 2018 Patrick Mahomes. That is exactly it. And if he's not, then he's a bust. So it's
exactly
50 touchdowns. Nashville, get ready this year. It's coming. We'll just lay our cards out there. It's coming.
I took the cop out of my comp and just said any range of Jordan Love, Sam Darnold, and Geno Smith. But the more I keep getting exposed to Cam Ward, I feel like that comp is almost too low. I do have a very nice grade on him as like a legit any given year top 5 like QB pick, like absolutely no questions asked. I actually have a higher grade on him than I did on Jaden Daniels last year. Admittedly, I was a little too low on Jaden Daniels, but man, like 3 things really stood out to me. I'm going to use that it factor term again, but balance that with real terminology. The pocket movement is incredible. The ability to sense the rush, know when and how to use his feet to extend plays, not just when to get out of the pocket and do the crazy improvisational stuff that he's more than capable of, but he'll reset in a clean pocket as well. He'll make a guy miss. He'll step back in, reset, find an open receiver down the field, keep those drives alive on third down. Not a lot of quarterbacks in this draft have that comfort level to know how the pocket's breaking down and how to do that. And then the creativity aspect as well. I don't remember who it was against, but there's a throw where he's he's just consistently drifting back towards the sideline. His spatial awareness is just insane. It's Mahomesian. He just plants and waits at the sideline, knowing there's a defender, pursuing him, and just sits there, waits, last second, lets it go, completes a pass like 25 yards down the field. His just creative instincts, his spatial awareness, the ability to just kind of slow things down in real time, that it factor completely stands out. But I thought his processing was much better than I expected going in, knowing he throws a lot of picks. Yes, he throws a lot of picks. He's over aggressive at times, but his ability to recognize rotating safeties and throw with anticipation and have like real high level NFL throws. One of his favorite throws is against when he gets cover 3 and Miami all the time had someone running up the seam against cover 3. His ability to kind of throw that as a back shoulder. He did it a bunch of times, but that one of the main clips going around on Cam Ward is the one where he draws a defender off sides and then looks to the sideline, points it out to the ref to make sure he throws the flag. But as he's literally looking at the sideline, catching the snap, getting ready to throw, he figures out, well, I gotta run this play anyway, before knowing if he gets the flag. He turns around. The safeties had rotated from too high into cover 3. He sees that post snap, throws a back shoulder up the seam away from the free safety, just like chef's kiss. Like he makes some throws reacting to information in real time that just blew me away, even if he's a little aggressive at times. And yes, he throws a few too many picks. That's where the Jordan Love comp came in. I think people hate on, and maybe you agree with this, maybe you don't as a Vikings fan, but people hate on Jordan Love all the time for bad interceptions. He actually, when he isn't wrong, when he doesn't have those picks, he has really good processing of defenses and makes some really high end reads. I see that with Cam Ward. The last thing I'll shout out on him, the yearly growth, man. I mean, we're learning more and more and more that this matters for these quarterbacks. You see the ability to develop is critical for these guys, and they're going to have to continue to get better. All of these guys at the next level, man, his ability to take better care of the football year after year, to use checkdowns more often, to make some of these more incredible throws, the increase in production, what he did for Miami, the clutch factor, like checks so many boxes in terms of sort of like football character that it just really, really speaks to me. So I'm a huge fan of Cam Ward. Definitely think would and should go number 1 if I were picking.
All right. I agree, especially with Tennessee's situation. And again, I didn't compare him to Caleb Williams. I compared him to 2018 Patrick Mahomes for clarity. Just so,
all right.
So we have that on record. Anyway, so the rankings, just to go over them quickly, are Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, Jaxson Dart, Jalen Milroe, Tyler Shough. And then after that, it is Will Howard, Kyle McCord, Dillon Gabriel, and Quinn Ewers. And Marcus, I thank you for joining the channel. And go ahead, plug the Franchise Guy YouTube channel. Anything else you'd like to plug?
Yeah, just that Franchise Guy on YouTube. We're going to be whipping through positional rankings. Just did my top 10 edge video yesterday, which ended up being about a top 18 edge rusher video because that class is just insane. We at least had honorable mentions down to my 18th player. But yeah, basically twice a week up till draft, going to be having positional rankings coming out. So if you're not subbed, go check that out.
And if you're not subbed here, then subscribe as well. So appreciate everybody watching the quarterback rankings for the 2025 draft. Appreciate Marcus joining the channel. And as always, until next time, please be safe and have a great day. Love you guys.